Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome to the podcast, Indestructible Souls. And we're going to complete our series on Black Fatherhood. And as you know, we got a holiday coming up, Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving will not be the same. We don't want no COVID turkeys and all that good stuff. But for all of those out there, have a happy Thanksgiving. I probably won't broadcast next Sunday, but we'll figure it out. So welcome to the podcast, Indestructible Souls. The platform is mental health, mental wellness for African American men and boys. And this is our fourth and final series on Black Fatherhood. And so just to kind of recap, the series has been on, and I have a special guest, and we're gonna get to his name and his role on tonight's show. But to recap, one of the things and the reason why I did this series on Black Fatherhood is that oftentimes we as Black fathers get a bum rap on, that whole term of deadbeat dad, Black fathers aren't in the home, and that sort of thing. So one of the things I wanted to do was dispel that myth, first off, that Black fathers do not exist in the home, because that's just simply not true. Now, do we have our issues with Black fathers? Absolutely. Do we have our issues with fatherhood? Absolutely. The thing is, a lot of us don't exactly know what fatherhood is supposed to look like, because we've been raised by women or some type of surrogate, meaning uncle, community member, or whatnot. The second part, we talked about the things that sons need from their fathers, and I'm going to recap that really quick. And the thing is, when I say fathers, I also mean male influence, any father figure. And there were 7 things that I attest that boys or young men need from their fathers, right? And so the first thing is that a son needs to see their father love their mother. And then I'll even go as far as to say respect, because even if you're in a situation where you're no longer with the mother, showing that mutual respect to that son teaches how to respect women. It shows admiration for their mother, and which makes them better fathers and better husbands or better spouses. The second thing we talked about in the second part was a son needs his father to, when his father makes mistakes, he needs to show his son that he can make mistakes and he can fail, but more importantly, how to overcome those failures. So one of the things is that we look up to our fathers, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, fathers make mistakes. And one of the things that's us as boys, we're going to make a lot of mistakes as young men.
Absolutely.
We just need to know that we're okay. We can overcome them, but we learn that resiliency from our fathers.
Yeah.
Fathers need to show their sons servant leadership. So that's an oxymoron, but leadership, but also being a servant at the same time.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Right? They need fathers to be present, not just in the house, but actually present, involved, right? Involved in their life, what's going on, being active. So not just in the home. Nowadays, fathers in the home and they're fighting their kids over the PS5, but we'll talk about that another day. I ain't gonna get into that too much, but it is what it is. And then also, one of the things, number 5, is fathers need to show their sons love regardless of their sons' choices, right? So sometimes we make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes as men. And as a father, we're supposed to be there to help guide them, whatever those choices are.
Mistakes, yeah.
Right? We need to affirm them. Good job. And then the other thing is that fathers need to show their sons, just to recap, is discipline them with love. Now, some of us been raised, we got the discipline. I don't know how loving it was at the time, but we definitely got the discipline. So let's get into it. So I have a special guest. We go way back. I don't know. This is Oswin Inge. I know him as Tyron. And I'm going to let you give the family history. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. But understand that my family and Tyron's family, Osmond's family, go back to the early '80s, mid '80s.
Probably about the from what I remember about 80, 88.
So it was way before '88. Well, I go back with your grandmother
Well,
and your
when I moved,
uncles.
when you went back with my uncles, your family, my mom's side of the family, probably mid 80s, like
Okay, so
80,
we
83,
we
84.
go way back. I remember Tyron singing in the choir, playing the drums. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Remember, "Give Me Three Wings." You gonna sing that for us today?
Nah, I ain't singing that. Couldn't sing then, ain't singing now. That's
All
why
right.
I played the
So
drums.
you and Coco, but okay. So so here we go. Tell the folks who you are. And so today's show is we're going to talk about being raised with a father in the home and what that influence looked like, how it shapes you as a man, how it shapes you as a husband, how it shapes you as a father. So go ahead, Osmond, tell us who you are and just give us a little bit of background.
Okay, so my name's Oswald Ninja. I moved to California around the age of 11 back in about 1987.
Okay.
Um, met your family, because my aunts and uncles knew your family.
Mm-hmm.
My mom started going to your grandmother's church, and from there we pretty much just had
We've been connected
been
ever
connected
since.
ever since. Exactly.
Okay.
Um, when I moved to California, it was a little change up for me, just because one of the things I did notice really quick was the absent level of guys who had dads.
Okay.
Because when I was in Alabama, most of the friends on my street, most of the guys I played with,
Mm-hmm.
went to school. My aunts, my cousins, everyone had a dad. The majority of people I knew
Right.
mentioned they dad, or oh, I got to go with my dad, or you want
Mm-hmm.
to go here with my dad. There was that. Then I moved here. It was during the 80s. It was
Right.
during the late 80s.
Okay.
Uh, the cocaine era, the
So the
crack,
epidemic.
the crack epidemic, and it was just a shock to me to when I would start meeting people in school,
Mm-hmm.
and I see things, or get involved with different people, and maybe someone do something that's out of line or something like that, and all I had in the back of my head was, I can't go home
Right.
to this crazy to this crazy dude.
Right.
So that kind of kept me level.
Okay.
The fear,
Got it.
the fear, the respect didn't come till later. It was the
Got
fear
it.
first.
Okay. So let's give today's discussion some context. And one of the things that happened is over the show, Tyron's been following the show, and he hit me up and he said, "You know what? Can you do a show on where men were raised with their fathers?" And because he felt like it was important, because it's hard to paint that narrative.
Yeah,
And I one of the things you did mention was in the South, you didn't see the same things you saw in California.
yeah. It was completely different. Just because I think from the way I look at it, I thought the crack epidemic played a heavy role in it,
Absolutely.
for here, because
Right.
crack at that time had not shown up like that in Alabama. Not for 11 years old, I couldn't see the dramatic difference
Right.
from here. But you're right. I wanted to talk about, everyone give a bad rap about fathers not
Mm-hmm.
being there, and
Okay.
all I could think of is my dad was there every day.
Right.
And so I felt like there had to be some guys out there, and I know guys who their dad was there
Mm-hmm.
every a few. But it's a very narrow list when it comes to black guys,
Right.
who had that influence every day.
Right. So today you're the spokesman for the black fathers who are in the home, involved in their kids' life, because we do want to change the narrative.
Yeah.
But here, most importantly, for those young men or even older men who are struggling with fatherhood,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things we want to put out a message on here of what that should look like, what the proper information.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I'm tired of is, yes, Black women have stepped up and they've done their part. But I think we're in a day and time that men, particularly Black men, we need to take our position back in the family.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's take a step back. Growing up as a boy,
Okay.
how did you see yourself, or how did you see yourself in your dad in that influence?
Well, growing up as a boy, I didn't really see my dad in me as a boy.
Okay,
It's real difficult when you're a boy because you're learning. It's like
right,
being a student in school. You can't see why am I going to math class? This makes no sense. You can't see that until you get into you can't see why you're doing adding and subtracting until you get into algebra.
right.
You know what I mean? And so it was hard as a boy, but by the time I guess by the time I hit the adolescent
Mm-hmm.
years of say like 13 on up, I seen the dramatic impact of why it was important for him to be there.
Okay, can you tell us why? What did you see for yourself?
Well, like I said, growing up in San Bernardino and the crack epidemic, the people at 13, 14, you start hanging with different people
Right.
who, in your eyes, some guys, they might as well be 25. They only 14 years
Right.
old,
Right.
And so decisions are made from drugs,
Okay.
girls,
Okay.
still in the car,
Gangs.
gangs,
Okay.
these things become important because you want to be cool,
Right.
but you also don't want to, you might not want to get caught for it or get in
Right.
trouble.
Right.
And you don't want to get caught because you know the consequences. I don't believe enough people knew.
Mm-hmm.
I believe people knew the consequences, but
Mm-hmm.
didn't know the consequences. No one was there to teach them what those consequences look like, long-term impacting
Right.
consequences.
So all of us had those same temptations.
Mm-hmm.
How did knowing that your father was at home and your father's influence keep you from going down that road?
I think the main thing was getting the information early.
Okay, talk about it.
Having the information early. Like, I'll give you an example. I was out one day. I think I was 14 years old, and my dad had passed by. I was hanging out near the projects in San Bernardino.
Mm-hmm.
My dad passed by. He didn't even stop. It wasn't until I got home,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I knew some dudes. They were older. They're a little bit older. I was hanging with some of the cousins of somebody, whatever.
Right.
And my dad go, "Hey man, look, let me tell you something. I don't know who them dudes was, but any of them older dudes tell you, hey, little man, let me talk to you like that,
Mm-hmm.
they ain't got nothing good for you. They're going to try to get you to do something that they ain't willing to do and get caught for it. And it's things like having someone actually tell you this and being able to visualize it and see it happen. Because it didn't happen it didn't happen to you, I'm sure. You know what I'm
absolutely.
saying?
Absolutely.
When you're able to see those things become,
And so, I think I'm an open book on the show.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the contrast. And this is true story. And these stories happened so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the contrast. Your dad
Mm-hmm.
saw you hanging out or somewhere where you shouldn't have been.
Mm-hmm.
If it had been my grandmother, she would have hopped out the car and told me to get my tail in the car. Yeah. But here's the contrast. So my dad and his struggles,
mm-hmm.
it probably would have been the opposite at that time. And I'm gonna tell you a quick story. And this is just to show the contrast.
Mm-hmm.
The very first time that I was ever introduced to marijuana,
mm-hmm.
true story, I was 8 years old. It was my dad.
Oh, wow.
That's the contrast.
Yeah.
But that was because of his struggles.
Got you.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you got information early from your dad that's saying, okay, now look, whatever they're going to have you do,
mm-hmm.
it's probably going to get you in trouble.
Yeah.
And we don't always get those messages from the difference is, and here's the contrast I want to make, in neighborhoods where there's absent of fathers and people are hustling, doing the things that they're getting,
mm-hmm.
doing that they're doing, we get the opposite message.
Got you.
Whereas you had a dad that says, okay, that stuff ain't no good.
Well, see, and just like you said, your grandmother would have jumped out of the car, or someone would have jumped out. I look back on that situation and thought, like, why didn't he just, why he didn't go inside my head, or like, come here,
Right.
I think my dad was always the type that's like, let me go ahead and let him do what he doing,
Mm-hmm.
because he gonna learn it on his own.
Right.
But let me put him through the guidance of how to handle,
So it's more important for you to learn the lesson.
It's important for you to, you gotta sometimes you gotta get burned to know it's hot.
Right. Okay. So would you say your dad was more of the nurturing type, or more of the authoritative type person?
Well, the thing about it is he was very militant, authoritative.
Authoritative. Okay.
He, there wasn't a lot of I'm different with my son a lot these days, where I discipline and come back with the whole, hey, look, man, I did this, because this is my reasoning for it.
Right.
My dad was like, look, this is, you just gonna do it because I said you're gonna do it, and if you don't want this funk,
Right.
if you don't want this smoke right here, it's gonna get done.
Right.
I'm a little bit different because I was able to understand that it's important to show both sides.
Okay. So let's take a sidestep.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what came up on the show last time. I struggled with authority.
Mm-hmm.
Did having an authority figure in your house help you deal with authority as you got older?
Absolutely.
Because to this day, ain't too many people can tell me what to do.
Well, that's where it's a catch-22 for me.
Okay.
My dad was like a Dame Dash, like you couldn't tell him what to do. He had a saying.
Okay.
And it used to be, you have to earn the right to tell the world to kiss your ass.
Sound good to me.
Because don't do nothing. Basically, don't get so ahead of yourself if you know you're gonna need to turn back and go over the bridge. But if you know you got it, can't nobody tell you nothing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, with that being said, I've struggled in the work environment. I work in law enforcement, and I've struggled with that because it's a post-militant atmosphere.
Right.
But I was taught a lot of self-dignity. And so carrying that in some of those environments has a different approach for certain people. Some people have a very passive aggressive mentality. Some people have a what do you call it? A real alpha male mentality.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with, like you said, you got to be able to take the criticism. You got to be able to take the if someone's issuing out discipline, or you know what I mean, you got to be able to take it.
Right.
It's not that my dad didn't show me how to take it. He just also showed me how to not take a bunch of anything else from people.
But so here's the thing. Do you think that a lot of men your age, we're not that far apart. I mean, I'm older, but we're not decades apart. Do you think because of those type of lessons that you got as an adolescent that a lot of men struggle because they have to get those by, like, trial by fire?
Yeah, I think again, just looking at it in the environment that I work in, law enforcement, I think a lot of, speaking for a Black guy, I think a lot of us miss those levels of discipline because a lot of times we're very quick to become on the defensive for things that don't call for to be super defensive. Even though we're taught both from male and female and from the environment we're in to be on the defense.
But it's a little different though when it's coming from a man. I think
when it's coming from a man, it's absolutely different.
Okay.
When it's coming from another, like for me, for it coming from my dad out of the house, him coming at me with, like I said, it was basically do what I tell you to do.
Okay.
That was it. There wasn't, I told you to do this for a reason. You don't do it,
there's a consequence.
There's a consequence. Don't cry now. The time for remorse was when you made the decision that you made. But at this point, we into the discipline part
Okay.
of this situation, and now you gonna get what you was asking for.
So let's take this a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so here's the therapist side of me coming up.
Okay.
So you touched on something. You got your dad. Do it because I say do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for us, especially as black men, we got a lot of pride.
Yeah.
One of the things that I know I struggle with and have struggled with is submitting to another man,
Mm-hmm.
even if he is my dad.
I got you.
So my question is, in that sense of how did you learn that being humble
Mm-hmm.
and being able to admire another man, your dad,
Mm-hmm.
didn't mean that you had to submit in the sense of you're weaker or you understand what I'm getting at?
Mm-hmm.
And so because that's a skill and that's something that never developed in me.
I get what you're saying now. Yeah. So to me, I look at it like on the football field.
Okay.
You obviously got guys who might be better than you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got guys who you know they're not better than you.
Right.
You either take on that leadership role or you don't. Now, in the household with my dad, yes, I could submit to him,
Mm-hmm.
but he never taught me to submit to anyone else unless it was in a positive manner.
Right.
So I got friends that, you know, I look at it like I wouldn't submit to them like, you don't tell me what to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if they come at me like, hey man, this ain't what we gonna be doing, this just don't make no sense. I learned how to openly acceptingly take constructive criticism on building the situation up versus anything that would tear me down.
Okay. And so
If that makes any sense.
It does. And here's where I'm going with it. Is that I think, including myself, as black men, because we lack that level of discipline to where now here we are, we're adolescents, we're growing up, you know, we got hair on our chin now and all these other things, that because we have not learned or had another man that we submit to respectably or out of respect, that leaves us emotionally ill-equipped to deal with the world. And that's why we go off on a lot of things, and that's why we struggle with a lot of things, because those emotions have not been developed. And so when you have a dad in the home, and like I said, where you respectably submit to your dad, that's another level of development.
I never thought of it that way, but
that's why I'm the therapist.
I never thought
I said I got my therapist hat on.
Yeah,
that's another level of development.
I never thought about it being like that was a way, because I never thought about that question you actually just asked. Like,
right.
You know, like I said,
that's why I'm good at what I do.
you could be in a situation where you know, like I said, but like I said, no one's going to lead me down the wrong path, because my dad wouldn't lead me down the wrong path.
Right. But here's the thing. Look how many of us have gotten in trouble, whether shooting somebody, fighting, this and that, simply because we can't walk away.
Yeah.
Simply just because we can't submit to even say, you know what, this situation is bigger than me right now, and I'm just going to walk away for the greater good.
Yeah.
Because our dads get old.
And they learn how to diffuse things a lot easier, because yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I know.
So I personally think that those who have responsible dads have a better or a higher level of emotional development. What do you think?
I think I'd agree with that. I think I can agree with that. You know, I mean, like I said, it's because of, I never thought of it the way that you just said it. It put my head in a spin mode for me.
Okay.
Like, wow, I learned some things, and you know, these are emotional attachments that I did not even understand about myself with that, because like I said, I just, you know, friends of mine knew that I took nothing from no one.
Right.
I was not an aggressive person. You had to bring the fight to me.
Okay.
But it's gonna get finished.
Right.
But you know what I mean?
And see, and here's the thing. Even if you have a mother who's strict and who played that role, to me, it's different. It's different.
How?
Because see, here's the thing. Like I told you before. I was raised by women, so I'm used to women's authority.
Okay.
Right. So it's just the way I was raised. So now in the world, like all of my supervisors, just the way the universe had it, the way God had it, all of my supervisors happen to be women. And did I ever pull the macho stuff? I'm better because I'm the man. No, because that's what I was raised with. But my mom was strict. My mom, my grandmother, my mom. They could put it down.
Yeah.
But I could take it from them. But if another man does that, now you're challenging my soul as a man.
Okay.
But it takes a father to develop that.
To develop that
to develop that
everyone is not trying to
punk you.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I would agree, because I got lieutenant supervisors who you can tell there's some guys who, oh man, I don't like this lieutenant. But I see this, I got a lieutenant, he comes and he's like, he'll wolf at you. Wow, 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 wow. But he's the last person to write you up.
Right.
But then I got people who will act like, some female supervisors I've had who, oh yeah, you're doing cool. And then you got paperwork on you.
Right.
You got paperwork on you. And those I'm sorry, but I was gonna say those dudes, they like, man, I can't handle that lieutenant, but he just reminded me of my dad. Like he's not woofing at me for the fact that he just want to be raising his voice.
Right.
He doing it to make the point and make sure you understand, like, I ain't going for this, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But
so it's a power play. Right.
Got it.
Yeah. So here, let me ask you this question, and we're gonna move on. How did your dad prepare you for one, manhood, fatherhood, and we could tackle each one of these differently.
Okay.
Marriage and sex. Let's go.
Okay.
Because here's the thing.
I'd have to say, yeah, go ahead.
When it comes to marriage, up until my brother got married, my grandmother was married, but my grandfather passed away. Up until my uncle was married, divorced, okay. But in terms of my direct influences, up until my brother Michael got married, nobody in my family was married.
Okay.
So I didn't see marriage in my household.
Okay.
You follow me?
I follow you.
Now, when it comes to sex, how does most young men learn about sex? From their homies or TV, magazines? So let's go.
So
you agreed to come on the show. Now let's do it.
Okay. So I'll say it like this. As far as like manhood, my dad taught me, hey, if you're going to be with someone, a woman want a man who's strong, know how to do things.
Okay.
So my dad taught me a lot about carpentry, mechanics. I'm good with my hands to this day, fixing things, creative, you know what I'm saying? Problem solving, because those are things that a man do.
Right.
Because a lot of women make it very clear, I could do this on my own. So
we could talk about it. I'm gonna write that down. Keep going.
With that as a something that he's seen, he would never allow himself to be or teach me to be submissive to the woman.
Okay.
In that role, because he always taught me that in that level of doing that, women take advantage of it more than men. Because I always tell people, a guy could love a woman that work at Del Taco,
right?
But a woman ain't that quick to love a dude if she make it more than him. So those are
here's my theory: men date down, women date up.
Exactly. So those are things that I would say for manhood going into the whole marriage and sex. The sex thing. Sex is something that's you earn it. As a man, you earn it.
Okay.
And the reason for it is because everybody, he like, hey man, ever since she was 11 years old, people been throwing dick at her.
Right,
You know what
right,
I'm saying? She can give it to anybody.
right,
You have to earn that from a woman.
right.
You know what I'm saying? How do you earn that? Showing her that you can take care of what problems need to be taken care of
Okay,
with that,
got you.
because everyone, you know what I mean, and those are just things, you know, and then to try to keep yourself, you know, don't let sex consume you. don't
Okay,
let don't let these things control what you do, and how, of course, it could get you in trouble. It could get you in trouble because you can make unwise decisions. Like, it's funny, when me and my wife got together,
mm-hmm.
I remember one time her sister, older sister, moved out,
Okay,
and I have friends who used to, you know, who come under single mom households, who would say things like, who'd be like, "Oh man, I'm staying over my girlfriend's house tonight." I'm like, "Yo, mama let you do that, right?"
mm-hmm.
So that was bizarre to me. So I tried it one time with my dad.
Right,
My wife's sister, she was okay with me staying the night. I was all the way across town, and I decided, I was like, "Hey, you know, it's late, and I had to ride the bus back from San Bernardino to Fontana, where we lived at the time." He was like, I said, "Hey, is it okay if I just stay the night?" He was like, this is his response. Black nigga,
go for it.
black motherfucker, get your ass on that bus and come home.
Right,
And then when I got home, he's like, "You ain't gonna play that with me.
right,
So you could be blaming me for you getting the girl pregnant."
right. There it is. There.
Because he the way I looked at it is, he had too many examples of
Mm-hmm.
people doing that to know better. And his main thing was like, "I'm gonna teach you and tell you what you need to know, because you're not gonna grow up and turn around and say I didn't tell you."
There you go.
That was the prime of him. So then when I got married,
Mm-hmm.
it became a situation of, you know, couples have, you know, people bump heads, man and woman bump heads. I remember when I was younger, he would tell me, you know, I mean, this, not to offend anyone,
Mm-hmm.
um, he just had this alpha male mentality. Like, it's important for you to date someone with, not just date. Man, look, don't marry someone or
Mm-hmm.
be with someone, a woman who don't know their daddy. And the reason he would say that was because he struggled with my mom, who come under a single parent household, and he felt like she didn't know what it
Mm-hmm.
looked like to be in a marriage and fight for something.
Okay,
Because on his side, I don't remember seeing a whole lot of my uncles. To this day, most of my uncles either died married to their wife,
okay,
or aunts died married to their husbands. I didn't see a lot of divorce in my family on my dad's side, coming from the South.
right.
The dynamics of that was different on my mom's side. I mean, most of her sisters and brothers are still, you know,
Mm-hmm.
their relationships are still together, but he just felt there was so much struggle. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Because my mom come under that whole, you want a man to do for you, but he ain't supposed to be your daddy. He don't tell you
So
what
he
to
don't
do.
tell you what to do.
Exactly. But
Got you.
you decide to get into this joint venture with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, on the other hand, my wife do know her, you know, was raised in the same house with both her parents.
Right.
And we've been married, 43, we've been married 23 of those years.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I got
Right.
married young, but I also knew, you know, I also felt like I picked someone who was compatible towards me. My wife is um, very non-confrontational,
Okay.
and I knew that I needed that because I knew who raised me, and and how he raised me. And it's either going, you know, you either want me to take my pants off and give them to you, which ain't gonna happen,
Right.
or we gonna work this
Are
out,
we
and
gonna
you
work it out?
and you gonna co-pilot, and I'm gonna pilot. When I
Got you.
need you to co-pilot, I just need you to
So
co-pilot.
so let's take another side street. So
Okay.
do you feel like that's one of the issues in the black family right now? That right now husbands and wives are jockeying for position.
Based on my experience and based on the people that I know,
Okay.
I would say absolutely. It's a imbalance, because and I try to not be so offensive to
Listen. Let's go.
okay.
We on the show.
There's a lot of sisters that I see,
Mm-hmm.
and this is not to rag on the sisters. This is single mama stuff, you know what I mean, all around. But a lot of sisters struggle with allowing a brother to be a man,
Got you.
and a lot of brothers accept that because they didn't have the man
Right.
around to tell them,
Right.
you a man, she a woman.
I
Because
agree.
the world, what's going to happen is
I agree.
the world, no matter what they think, because my dad also told me this, everything comes back to something he told me.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, if we wind up homeless, who you think the one, if you and your wife wind up homeless or something happened, you think her daddy can come to her and ask what happened?
Right.
He gonna come to you and ask
Yeah,
what happened.
absolutely. And he should.
And he should come to you because you the start of it. But a lot of women like to take the role, like they want to take the responsibility
Mm-hmm.
of the man. But then when that comes, like, I don't know what's going on. Go talk to him.
Right.
That's the roles that get flipped. And I just was never in a situation where I would be in a relationship that was like that.
Right. And I don't think what you said was offensive at all. I think a lot of times women don't know how to allow a man to be a man.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side of that, I think too many men are willing to give up that role.
Absolutely.
So we actually have an in studio guest. So if you seeing who passing the note, we'll get to that. So let me see. It says, okay, this generation of women are different from when our fathers was around. Okay. And he's right. And the thing is, here's my opinion. We can't place blame on just on the women because the lack of men, we put women in that position.
Absolutely.
So whether it was the crack epidemic, whatever you want to call it, all these things that we can point to, we've put women in this position. So now we have this tug of war. Now we have this battle. What I'm suggesting is now, in order for us in this time of change, where we're talking about systematic racism and all these other things, I'm saying we have to accept our roles and put the family back together as it was intended.
As it was intended, with the man at the head of the house.
Absolutely.
Point blank.
Absolutely.
And then, and yeah, I, again, like I said, because growing up, that's what I seen. I only can do what I've seen.
Right.
That is how my household is ran. You know what I'm saying? That is what the respect that I demand out of my household. Now, do you always do it right? No. Do it always make everyone comfortable? No.
Right.
Especially, I got 4 sisters and I'm the only boy. And I got 3 daughters.
Right. Oh, yeah, you got
and I got a lot of women around me, and it's a tug of war.
Right.
A lot of times it's a struggle because with my sisters who look up to me as a kind of like a big brother, older brother, dad figure, problem solver.
Right.
Because I'm the problem solver when they need it.
Right.
But when they don't need it, they don't need you. You know what I mean? It's a level of use as well. Missed unappreciative feeling to be that dad take on the dad take on roles that comes with no what do you call it?
Sometimes we don't get the recognition.
We don't get the recognition.
Right. Sometimes we have to quarterback it, but I'll say it this way: we don't even quarterback it. Sometimes we up in the booth.
Exactly, and they don't know we engineered the play. They don't know it was engineered by us. Well, the rest of the world don't know it was engineered by us. They just see the outcome.
Absolutely.
And as a dad, and I was talking, like I said, my dad actually told me, like I said, keep the peace, and things like when I had kids, and I remember I was doing something. And I was like, I was complaining about it. He was like, look, I'm going to tell you right now. your happiness don't even matter no more because
I
you
agree.
have kids. And I don't believe he was saying to not be happy, but I
Hmm.
believe he was more saying, look, I've taught you ownership.
Okay.
Own up to whatever it is that you do. That's a part of the earning the respect to
Right.
tell the world to kiss your ass,
Right.
you know? So in return, if you're gonna do something, do it all the way.
Right.
You gonna have kids? Ain't no I didn't leave you.
Right.
You're not gonna leave them.
Right.
You gonna fight for what you I didn't tell you to to marry her.
Right. But here's the thing. You're absolutely right. As a man, it's a part of our sacrifice. Once we have kids and once we have a family, it is no longer just about us.
Absolutely.
And part of manhood is putting your family first.
Absolutely.
And if how could I put it? If you're thriving and the rest of your family's not, something's wrong with that.
Something and it goes in, that's why I say it goes in it goes hand in hand, because you also have to have a mate, a woman
Okay.
that believe in what you're doing
Gotcha.
enough. And that's where all of to me, a lot of the lessons in what I was taught through my dad was your woman have to be confident that
Right.
you know how to pilot this plane,
That you know what you're doing.
that you know what you're doing. And those are things that are important. So the things, the guidelines, the guidance that I got of how to be how to be a man, and what to expect in manhood, what to expect with fatherhood, what to expect in a marriage. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? What to expect being, because this is a whole nother issue. What to expect of being a daddy, married, trying to progress
Mm-hmm.
in a world that always puts you on the defense,
Right.
and dealing with a world and a career or environment that's always uh is heavily racially
Right.
invoked,
Right.
that's something constantly trying to tear you down. You
Right.
know what I mean? And how do you still maintain being positive in your house?
Right.
Those are things that, you know, I learned from him, you know.
Absolutely. So let's move a little bit forward. We got about 17 minutes left.
Okay.
So as we get older,
As we get older.
we start to come into our own.
Mhm.
Adolescent years, we feel like we're our own man and all that others. In what ways did, if any, you and your father have conflict, and
Mhm.
how did you guys resolve that?
There again, in my dad's house, you eating his food, there ain't no conflict. there,
I get that.
there's no conflict until, but my dad, again, that whole lesson of you earn the right
Okay.
to tell the world, even me, to kiss your
So
ass.
what about when you guys had disagreements? How did you resolve
When
those?
we had disagreements, in my younger years, they were, again, we can't speak on the younger years because it's really difficult. It was do what I tell you to do.
Right.
Every now and then, if he was wrong, if my dad was wrong for
Mm-hmm.
something, he'll honestly come back and tell me, "Hey, buddy, I was wrong. You know what I
Okay.
mean? I advised you wrong, or I said this wrong, or I didn't mean to make you feel like this." He would be apologetic, and
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I see how that worked because it would make me cry, because I was ready for him to punch me or something.
Right.
It almost was like I was preparing for a punch, and then someone was like, "Nah, I get, you good," and
Right.
it tears you up emotionally. But as far as like when we got older, there was issues of like when I got out of school, I got into real estate. I
Mm-hmm.
started making money in real estate. I started doing real good in real estate, and it was not that my dad was not proud of me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Um, because he taught me to do this thing. Like I got in I'll say it just so we on the same note here.
Mm-hmm.
I got in a boat accident.
Okay.
I was hospitalized for a few months, and I remember just hearing things that my dad would say when I was younger, like, "Hey, look, he was a laborer.
Okay.
You make money with your brain, not with your
Right.
hands. You know what I mean? A man in a wheelchair could make more money than me if he hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't ever want your hands to look like this. You don't ever want to be in a bad situation where you can't provide for your family.
Right.
And I was sitting up in a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was closing the deal for about 10 grand. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And my dad, who had brought me some food, was sitting next to me. And I'm like, hey, this is crazy. You don't think I listened to you, but look, I'm here enabled,
Right.
doped up, foot in the air, exposed, you know what I mean? And I'm still earning.
Right.
This is something that you taught me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But being in that real estate field, I brought that up because I was saying we dealt with conflict very different when I got older. When
Okay.
I got older, dealing with conflict was he still was in the. It always felt like he never looked at me older than 12 or 15.
Okay.
So it wasn't you got to do it was more you need to do this, you need to do that.
Right.
But you taught me how to be strong and make
Right.
my own decisions.
Right.
So when I do it, and then I do what you said, which is earn the right to tell you to kiss my ass, now you want me
Right.
to not kiss your ass and listen. So if you really didn't mean it, you
Right.
meant tell everybody else that,
Except
but
your
you,
daddy.
you know, except for you.
Right.
And that's where things became a little bit difficult. And I was running a business.
Right.
How I'm gonna tell you what to do as my employee? Then my dad come through. It's not his business. They
Right.
know it as my business. So if he worked for me,
Right.
shouldn't he be doing the same? You know what I mean? Shouldn't he be working for me just like everybody? So
Absolutely.
those are some of the minor struggles. But as far as like, like I said, I told you to do. I opened up a store. I told you you need to do this and you need to do that, and it's like I'm not going against what you're saying, but we got two different generations. Something that's my idea versus
Right.
something that's your idea.
Right.
Now, if you said, hey, you just picked up a job and you want me to come help you, I'm there to do what you asked me to do.
Right. Now this is yours.
Now this is mine.
Right.
And I know people who had struggles with parents where it seemed like they're doing better, just like on the movie what do you call it, Wall Street.
Okay.
He was doing better than, if you remember that movie, he was doing better than the dad. The dad was working. The dad was kind of telling him like, look, son, you're moving too fast.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you just think because you're old, washed up, da 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 da. And a lot of the times I think it's, at least from my experience, it's more of the youth,
Right.
and their zeal,
Okay.
their level of ambition,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that feel like someone is being competitive with them,
Right.
like the dad,
Okay.
or because that they've pointed out to you that you're doing better than them.
Right. And so I think a lot of times, and I see often working with families, working with men, and
Mm-hmm.
that when boys begin to progress and grow up, and now I'm taking on and I'm embodying my manhood, I may clash with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see it happen, and sometimes those conflicts have to be resolved. So let's go this place, and we're going to start wrapping up. And I want to thank you for coming on the show and really being transparent. And this is sort of your time to shine and honor your dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last question is, in what ways are you like your father, and how has he influenced you as a man?
I think I'm probably I think if God said, here you go, if that's what he wanted, I think that's how I am with my, the impact of my dad from just about everything I do, almost down to the mannerism and the way I talk to people.
Right.
Some people could take it as condescending, but it's more of, you really can't tell me it. And I receive information very well.
Okay.
But I'm going to be opinionated. I'm going to be strong about it. My dad taught me all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
I learned so many things from him. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? I mean, just about everything. I think even, like I said, even at his funeral, I had a list of things to say and talk, but it boiled down to like almost like, okay, I lost my dad when I was 31,
Mm-hmm.
and I 31, 32, and I'm like, oh, it was too soon for me. I'm still learning.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I haven't learned what it's like when my kids get to be teenagers and how to deal with this. Because
Right.
I honestly would sit around as much as I didn't want to. Sometimes I learned to take his advice, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I learned I don't want to hear it.
Right.
But I would go sit and give information to him
Mm-hmm.
and let him process it.
Right.
And if it worked for me, it worked, and if it didn't, it didn't. But for the most part, just down to the things I learned, how to be involved as a dad,
Okay.
how to love my wife. You know what I mean? You can't just be, like you said, you can't just be an authoritative figure without showing love. And your kids have to see you
Right.
love your wife. I don't Me and my wife very seldomly argue in front of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we don't go to bed mad
Okay.
at each other. Um, I don't let things fester in the household, things that he done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, resolve issues really quick. But as far as like craftiness, I'm good with just about it. I'm confident.
Right.
I'm confident in anything that I touch.
Okay.
I mean, if 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 something broke in this room,
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably be the first person to say, hold on, let me fix it real quick.
Right.
And even though, and a lot of people who I do know who didn't grow up like that, they were like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm like, why you gonna pay somebody to do? Because my dad had a concept.
Right.
You can't mess up what's already broke. you can you can only improve from that point. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So for that, from that right there being said, uh, you know, to me that's a confidence level. Like, and I'm gonna say, like, right now, when he died, I got real active rebuilding this classic car.
Okay.
And I bought the car the year my son was born for me and him to build together. And I really was going to rebuild it. This was my dad passed in 2010. I bought the car in 2004 when
Mm-hmm.
I got the news I was having a son.
Okay.
My dad loved these classic cars. So I was going to build it up and kind of give him one and then build one for myself. He passed before I
Mm.
could do it. When he passed, that's the only thing I was able to keep my mind off
Right.
of things.
Right.
And even though my passion for cars and stuff came from him,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't fix up cars for a cruiser. Or he fixed it up because mom had a better car than him and he had a raggedy car and they had to keep going.
Right.
But just him come out, hand me a wrench,
Right.
do that. I learned how to be. I seen someone be able to be confident about what they do, and in return, my mom would never be, well, you ain't, there was no, you're not going to be able to fix that,
Right.
because he proved to her and everybody else so many
Right.
times that
So he earned it.
he earned it. Everything,
Absolutely.
yeah, any and everything that you do in life, you have to earn it.
Yeah. I like that. You got to earn the right to tell the world to kiss your ass. I'm gonna take that one.
Make a t-shirt. Huh?
Let's make a t-shirt
Well,
about it.
it's yeah.
So any final thoughts as we wrap up?
No, I mean, I think, at the end of the day, it's important for these talks to come about. It's
Okay.
important for, I wish that I wish that the circumstances in life allowed more brothers to be able to have the experience that I had.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I speak with a lot of friends. I speak with a lot of coworkers, and I mean, I've had a white dude tell me, "Lamb, you like a unicorn," you know, because there's things that they hear that when honestly a man teaches you something,
Right.
and because it's different. Some people got people who teach them things, but it's different when my dad was receptive to understanding that this was, but that was because he came from it.
Right.
My granddad taught him and his brothers,
Right.
and so he tried to do it better than his dad, and he
Right.
taught me to do it better with mine and my son.
Absolutely.
And so those are the things that
And,
impacted.
and you touched on something, and I'll wrap up on this. For us as Black people, Black men, Black families, and all these things, and you say, the white guy say you're a unicorn and all that stuff, whatever his concept of that was, it is what it is. The fact of the matter is, there's more of us fathers out there, but the narrative and what people want to see and what people want to show is the opposite.
Exactly.
Is the fathers that's not there. It's the fathers that are absent. It's the fathers that aren't doing any good. But there's a lot of us.
There's a lot. I would say there's a lot of fathers. I'm so proud of the guys that I hang with.
Right.
We've been together since like 12, 13 years old. And the majority of them are absolutely great Black fathers.
Right.
And I'm talking about 7 to 8 dudes.
Right.
And a lot of these dudes didn't grow up with dads.
But
they knew what it felt like to not grow up with one.
Absolutely.
And therefore, they made the conscious decisions to make sure that they were in their kids' life.
There we go. And so we got to change the narrative. And I think in order for us to fight this social fight, we got to put the family back in order. And so, we're gonna wrap it up right now. And I want to thank Oswin Inge for coming on the show and being transparent, talking about his dad. And so in terms of fatherhood, Black fatherhood, one of the things is that we have to start lifting each other up.
Absolutely.
And we even have to start mentoring. We have to start mentoring other fathers, other young fathers, those who are struggling, who want to get it right, but for whatever reason decide to walk away. We have to be mentors to not just athletes, but we got to be mentor to people who are fathers as well.
Yeah.
And so we got to change the narrative. So I want to thank everyone for joining us and following this series on Black fatherhood, and understand we have to stop, meaning we as a people have to stop perpetuating the myth that Black fathers don't exist and that there are more families, Black families without fathers than there are. It's the exact opposite. And so
if I could add one, I also think we need to, for a lot of our women sisters, and when I speak of this, is quit using the thought of you could do this by yourself.
Okay.
Because no one's saying if you have to do it, that's one thing.
Right.
But many of us, to me, what I've seen, and this is even within my family, you've chosen to do something.
That's a topic for a whole nother show, but you're right.
You chose to do something.
Right.
It's not the natural thing.
Right.
For that son. You don't see a cub in the wild just letting, just letting a wolf show the cub how to live. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? So we're right. Creatures of nature. So,
Absolutely. So this has been Indestructible Soul. I want to thank you guys for joining us. And yet again, happy Thanksgiving. Happy Turkey Day. And you guys be safe out there. Stay COVID free. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
All right.